Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of our Cheap Bike Buildoff entry. If you didn't watch part 1, go check it out. But in summary, what we're doing is we're building the best bike we can for a budget of $150. We have till February 23rd to get it done. This is a contest that was started by the Mullet Mechanic, so you can learn all about that. Just look at the hashtag Cheap Bike Buildoff on YouTube as well as Instagram, and you'll learn all about it. But in this episode, I'm going to tell you all about our bike. We've made a lot of progress. There's the bike back there. I'm going to show you what we've done so far. I'm going to tell you what we have left to do. And then in the next episode, we'll have the finished bike. We're waiting on a couple of parts, and we're also may need to make a few changes to stay under that $150 budget. But we're going to get all of that done before February 23rd. And we'll have one more video to go through all of that with you. But for now, I want to show you what we've done so far, let you check out the progress. And also, I want to hear your comments. What do you think of this bike so far? Are we doing okay? Would you change it? Is there anything you'd do differently? I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. So without further ado, let's get into our Cheap Bike Buildoff entry right back here. All right, so the biggest challenge that we're going to face on this bike is what to do about the rear wheel. So first of all, it's got these old steel rims, which we don't really want to use. We're not crazy about them. Second of all, we've got a coaster brake hub here, which is cool. We could rebuild it and make it work, but this thing is crusty. Rear, it's in really bad shape, and we'd have to rebuild it. Who knows what we'd run into. And honestly, it's not all that sexy. So what we are going to attempt to do, based on John's great find here, he found this hub on a tandem that we brought into the shop at some point. It's an old Sturmy Archer 3-speed hub, and it's in decent condition. We may still need to rebuild it, but it is in working order. And we are going to attempt to use this hub on this build. I think it'll add some sexiness to the bike and make it unique. We are going to replace the rim though. We don't want to use this old steel rim, but fortunately it is a 36 hole hub, and we can build it into a, use a 90s era mountain bike rim probably. So we'll see if it all works, but that's the plan, and that's going to be kind of the centerpiece of this bike. So we're going to get this wheel taken apart, clean up this hub, make sure it's functional, and then build it around this. All right, so we're going to make quick work of this. Cutting those is pretty difficult. So, all right, I don't like that. Man up. This is a pretty serious hub, man. It's like a motorcycle hub. So this is a Sturmy Archer 3-speed hub, and it has a built-in drum brake. Well, it's been sitting in the attic for a few years, and we thought, boy, this might be a good time to use this. Totally unique. We'll give this build a awesome factor, and it fits in the rear dropouts just fine. So we're gonna get this thing operational. The brakes, I think, are in good shape. It does shift. It's a little laggy, but we will tear it apart probably and do what we need to do to get it functioning. First thing I'm gonna do is clean it up so we can start working on it. There's a really good video out there by RJ the Bike Guy that shows you how to take apart and service a coaster brake hub. So I'm not going to go through all of the steps. Be a pretty long and boring video if I did that. So I'm just going to put it together and just show you some of the highlights. All right, so I've got my hub completely apart, at least as far as we could go. I'm actually missing a tool I need to completely remove the inside of this from the hub body, but we're just gonna make the best of it. That's as far as we can go. I was able to get all of the bearings out and cleaned up. So I've got some loose bearings up here. I've got these bearings cleaned up. So I am going to be able to service all the bearings, grease all the bearings, put the hub back together, and we've cleaned it up as good as we can. Actually, in the drum area, I was able to use some brake cleaner and clean that out. So we're going to do the best we can with this. I think it'll be fine. All right, I gotta get all these bearings in here. All right, got the bearings in there, 24 of them, 3/16. All right, one more set of bearings goes in. All right, so while I'm cleaning this bike, let me explain a couple things that we ran into. One is that the bottom bracket that came on this bike is specific to the cotter crankset. So worked fine if we wanted to use the crankset that was on the bike, but we wanted to put a little bit different square taper crankset on the bike, so we needed a new bottom bracket. Well, the problem is that this bottom bracket is not the normal English threaded standard. This is I think, a French bottom bracket, which means that the right-hand side is right threaded instead of left threaded. So that means we need a bottom bracket that we don't have, a French bottom bracket. They're a little harder to come by. So I ordered a couple that I think will work, and I've got a couple options, so I'm waiting for those to come in. So we can't put the crankset on at this point until that comes in. We can always fall back and use the cotter crankset, which honestly, once we kind of run the budget numbers, we might have to do that. So we're kind of got a couple different options. So that'll be the last thing that we do, I guess, on this bike. And it will depend on the budget what we're able to do. All right, so I'm going to use a little bit of this fine scratch and blemish remover, and this just will kind of even out the paint just a little bit and remove some of the some of the remaining spots. You know, I don't know why modern bike companies don't make orange bikes anymore. Wish they would. Maybe there's somebody out there. All City's the one bike that came to mind. They had an orange, I think it was a Space Horse that was similar color. But if you're aware of any, let me know. I'm not. All right, so last step after the blemish remover, I'm gonna use this turtle wax on it just to give it a little bit of shine and a little hard shell. Not normally what I would do, but on a bike of this age with this type of paint, not a problem. Done.
Yay.
All right, we're gonna clean a lot of the small parts in the ultrasonic cleaner just to get them shiny and looking good. All right, so this is the rim that came on the bike. It's a nice chrome rim. It probably would clean up nice and look pretty nice, but it is heavy and it's steel. And I think for this build, I'm gonna do something different and use this aluminum lightweight wheel and thread it up to our Sturmy Archer drum brake hub. I'm gonna reuse the spokes, so I didn't have to purchase any spokes. This rim's I took it out. It was a ruined wheel that had a bad hub and I just took it out. All right, folks, we are making progress on this bike. We got the front wheel done. We came up with a really cool high flange hub off of a junked Swin bike that we got donated to us. And we threaded it onto a just standard mountain bike rim. So we got that on there, it's looking good. Of course, the rear wheel looks awesome. Now, one other problem we have to tackle, and that is the bottom bracket. So this bike, as some of you noticed in our teardown video, has a right threaded drive side bottom bracket. And so we took it out, and the threads are pretty good, but it's not your standard English threading, so we're gonna have to find a French threaded bottom bracket. So one option is this IRD quad bottom bracket. This is a standard English thread, but IRD makes a conversion kit. So we could use this bottom bracket, pop off the end caps, use these instead, and they theoretically should thread into this French threaded bottom bracket. However, in playing with this, the threads in here are not great, and I'm just really having to force this in to get it in, and I'm afraid I'm going to mess up the threads even more. I could use a threading tool and get this bottom bracket cleaned up a little bit and try it and mess around with it that way and probably make it work. However, I have another option. And if you're ever in a situation where you have bad threads on your bottom bracket, this is something that you might want to consider. So Sunlight makes this replacement bottom bracket, and it's effectively threads together and basically bypasses the threads on the actual bottom bracket. So basically you thread this apart, put it in, and then clamp it down. And I've used this before. I had on my Bridgestone RBT, I had bad threads, so I went ahead and used one of these, and it works just fine. In fact, it's a little bit less expensive than the IRD option, with the considering the costs of the additional adapters. So this is going to save me a little bit of money, help me stay under budget. It is a little bit of an expense using a brand new bottom bracket, but I really don't have any other options if I want to make this bike work. Well, actually I do have another option, and that is use the old bottom bracket that came on the bike with the old crankset, which I really don't want to do. Once I do the numbers on this bike, I might have to revert to that, but I'm hoping that I've got budget to use this bottom bracket on this bike, and this will allow us to use a standard square taper crankset that I have picked out, and much better option. So I'm gonna put this in, basically just slides in, and tighten it down on this side, and easy peasy. And give me a decent chain line. I would say it's gonna work. Use the inside of the... All right, chain line's not perfect, but I think once I clamp everything down, it'll probably work okay. All right, so we're making progress here. We have some Schwalbe Marathon tires that we're trying on this thing, and these are a little bit narrower, 26 by 1.75. I think they're gonna work. Not the coolest tire out there, but they fit, and they'll allow us to use the fenders on this bike, so we're gonna do that. I think that'll look cool. I'm gonna get these fenders cleaned up, shined up, make them look nice, and we'll see how that goes. But meantime, we're getting ready to install the handlebars and the stem on this bike. Got something cool planned here. There they are. So these came off of a mountain bike that I bought for about 80 bucks. So I figure I pulled them off and try to assign some kind of value to them, but they are some cool bull moose bars, and I actually have a couple of sets of them, and I thought for this build it will add some cool toughness. All right, folks, so on this bike, one of the things that we absolutely wanted to keep is these cool fenders. Great looking chrome. The main feature is this little fin on the front fender. So we picked tires that would fit underneath these fenders, and I just need to get them cleaned up and get them on the bike. So for chrome, I like to use this Neverdoll Magic Waxing Polish. And it's basically just these little polishing cloth. But yeah, it won't scratch the silver, and it just shines everything up, makes it look nice. It's amazing how this old chrome holds up, but there are a few tiny rust spots on here. Probably just take some aluminum foil and try to rub that off. I don't have any here at the shop, so I'll pick some up later, but I'll get everything else cleaned up and get it looking as good as I can with what I have. All right, so it's a lot of little things with this bike. The seat post is kind of an unusual size. I don't have any other seat posts, so I'm gonna end up using the one that was on the bike. Unfortunately, it's only about that long, maybe a little bit longer. So it's probably good enough. Probably goes down to about here. All right, so found this Sella Italia saddle that I thought would look kind of cool on this bike. So we're gonna try this on there. We may switch it out in the final bike, but we'll get it on here, see how it looks. All right, one more piece of the puzzle, pedals. Got these WTB Momentum, really cool shaped pedal. Nice color, look great on this bike. I'm gonna go ahead and put them on, see how they look. All right, guys, so here's where we are so far. I think the highlight on this bike is our hub. This is a 3-speed Sturmy Archer drum brake hub. I think that's the highlight of the bike. Wheels came out great. We're running some Schwalbe Marathons on the front and the back. These are both used. We took them off of another bike that we have. The other challenging part was this crank set. We had to get a special bottom bracket to account for the fact that we have a French bottom bracket. That is actually what's putting us right on the budget. We're a little concerned that that may push us over, so we may have to make some adjustments. We got our handlebars on. I think they look pretty good, but I'm not 100% sold on that handlebar stem combination, so there might be a change there. We'll see. Got our fenders on, I think they look great. So yeah, so far, bike's coming along great. So the one piece we're waiting on is the cabling for this drum brake. So thought we had what we needed, but turns out we don't. So had to order one. Fortunately, I was able to find one. Contacted the seller, they're out of Texas, and they shipped it out the day we asked for it. So we'll have that probably Tuesday, and that should give us everything we need to finish up this bike, except for a few minor changes that we might need to make to stay in budget. Obviously, we also got to put our grips on and finish that up, but not going to do that until we know exactly what we're doing with the handlebars. But so far, so good on this bike. Feel pretty good about it. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for part 3. We'll get this bike done. We'll give you the full cost breakdown. We'll take this bike out for a test ride, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, get out and ride your bike, and we'll see you in a few days, hopefully.